Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on this special interview on NewsX. We're in conversation today with the team behind Chhorii 2. Yes, of course, the big horror film releasing on Amazon Prime ahead of this summer 2025. With us is the film's producer, Jack Davis, and Vishal Furia, the film's director. Welcome, both of you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Uday. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Let me begin with you first, Vishal. It's become a hit franchise, if I can already call it that. I'm sure people will already start asking you for Chhorii 3. But just tell us about, were there plans for the sequel when you made the first one? Did it happen after the success? Tell us about how part 2 came about.
Yeah, my journey has literally started from Lapa Chhapi, which is the Marathi film, the regional film, which
Yeah.
is the origin of Chhorii. And when I made that film and when it got a huge reception from the female audiences, especially, loads of female audiences came to the theaters to watch the film and recommended it to their friends and relatives. So that essentially sowed the seed for this franchise going ahead. Unfortunately, Lapachapi stayed limited to a certain state, to the state of Maharashtra because of the language.
Mm.
So organically, it led to me wanting to make it in Hindi. And then when I met Vikram and Jack, who aligned with me on that thought and looked at a much larger vision for the horror genre and not just one film, so that is when I knew that that the story was had found its right home. So then we made Chhorii. Chhorii also got a tremendous response from the audiences, especially the female audiences, because horror is considered a male genre in India.
Yeah.
But this particular franchise has had a huge female audience. So that led us to, when Chhorii released, that same night I had bounced off my thoughts on Chhorii to Jack and Vikram. The idea was that in the first part we tried to draw attention towards one social evil, and it doesn't end with just one social evil. There are many practices and habits in Indian society which are still prevalent and which still need to be talked about and pointed at. So the story organically led to the second part, where we speak about another such evil
Yeah.
with a much more sinister and much more evil world, and very dark characters. So it is an organic progression, and hopefully, if this one works out well, we might go forward with a third also.
Okay, that's a big hint already that you've given us today on Chori 3 possibly. But Jack, let me draw you in here. On how firstly your collaboration in India happened. Of course, you have a very successful production house in the West, and obviously horror is your speciality. But how did this collaboration for Chori 1 happen, and were you immediately on board for Chori 2?
Well, I got to meet me and me and Vishal's incredible partner, Vikram. And, I got to meet Vikram actually in Los Angeles and then started coming out here and understanding the type of storyteller he is, understanding the stories he wanted to back, and really seeing the potential of the horror genre here in Mumbai, here in Hindi film. Seeing it as a genre that could move past just jump scares and into really elevated drama, elevated scares because you care about the characters. I actually remember screening Lepage with Vikram, and I saw that Vishal was the director who understood how to get you emotionally invested in the characters. And what I think happened in Chori 1, which I love so much, and Nusrat deserves a lot of credit, is what Vishal has done is devise a film that even though there's a female protagonist at the center, she's not just a damsel in distress. So many horror movies can kind of just put the female in a position where they are just getting chased and screaming. She fights back. She has agency. She uncovers mystery. I think that is executed and grown and extended so well in Chori 2. And what excites me so much about this franchise and why I do believe it, you said it, so I appreciate you saying it, why I believe it's a franchise is the Shaw's built characters we really care about, characters we want to see grow, and characters that even though there was so much heart and root in Chori 1, the extension of these character stories feels very natural. So I would say just wanting to see the horror genre grow here, and getting to grow it with streamers as streaming becomes a bigger category is something I knew had potential, but it takes an actual specific filmmaker and storyteller to enhance something and elevate it. I believe Vishal's done exactly that, and now he's done it more than once.
Was that also the intention, Vishal? From day one, as Jack is saying, to be with streaming platform like you are with Amazon Prime. Why do you believe this has elevated your horror film to a whole new level because of being on an OTT platform like Amazon Prime?
So, as I said, when I made the Marathi film, it kind
Mm.
of got limited to one state because of the
Yeah.
language barrier. And when Prime Video came in, the film actually went global and it resonated with audiences
True.
worldwide, right? So, these are good times where we get to do that, which earlier was not possible, or it
Mhm.
took many, many years for somebody to do that or to prove that, right? So
Yeah.
now, at the click of a button, you are able to do that.
Yeah.
Your story can travel to many, many, many countries. So the idea is that Indian horror also has a lot to tell. This
Mhm.
is one part of it, and this also needs to travel globally so the world can see that India has so much to offer in this
True.
particular genre as well.
Apart
Yeah.
from just song and dance, I have to ask you then very quickly about the casting as well. Because you had Nusrat Bharucha. How did that happen? Because and was she the first choice for the second one as well? Because not often do you have franchises continuing with the same actor. Because Nusrat also had not done something like this before at all. It was a very very different sort of Nusrat that we saw in Chhorii from her, happy-go-lucky avatar that we've seen in her comedy films and other films. Now Soha Ali Khan as well. Again, she's not someone who we can imagine in a horror film. So casting, how did that happen, Vishal?
Yeah, so as you rightly said, Nusrat was boxed in a certain image
Hmm.
and she was desperate to get out of that image. And when Chhorii was offered to her, she was more than willing to do it. And me and Vikram have known Nusrat for a while,
Hmm.
and he has worked with her. I have met her a couple of times before the film. So we both knew that she is a sincere, hardworking actor, and having her on board would really help us to do justice to the story. Also, her physicality being petite helps because when you see this small girl troubled by these evil people and the surroundings, it gets even more scarier. So she was the first choice, and she accepted, and it's just we didn't have to meet anybody else for the protagonist role. And the story organically moves from part one to part two. So she continues the franchise, so she remains the protagonist of the franchise. While casting for the evil character in Chhorii 2, which is the character of Dasima, Soha Ali Khan's name was suggested by Vikram sir, and I instantly laughed at that name because it was an interesting name to have. Something which is casting literally against the grain and
Hmm.
against her natural personality. So it would be a surprise, and also with the kind of person that she is. She's a very well-read person, a
Hmm.
businesswoman herself. So this is a complete opposite of what the character of Dasi is.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to see her in that character, and if she believes in that character and if she agrees to do it, it would be kind of a validation for me also that what I'm
Okay.
setting out to do, it is resonating with the likes of her as well. So for me also that was a win.
Okay.
And then when she understood the character, when she started liking the character because she had her doubts because of the kind of bad or mediocre work that we have done in Indian horror before that,
Hmm.
she had her doubts where how will I be presented and all of that. Thankfully, she had seen Chori 1 and she had liked that film. And then with a little bit of convincing, she was on board. And then when she started looking like Dasi and behaving like Dasi, it really hit the ball out of the park. So
Hmm.
she has done a fabulous job, and I think the audiences are already looking forward to what she's doing
Okay.
in the film.
Okay, great, great. Yeah. Jack, let me quickly bring you in on how your studios connect with horror began. How did this happen? Because obviously it's become your strong point, but let's just hear the story of how it started.
I've been in horror for a long time. It's not the only thing I do, but it's something that has a deep place to my heart 'cause it's something I have done a lot. I've done for Netflix in the US and Amazon in the US and Peacock, and obviously getting to work with Amazon India here. I would say my passion for horror comes from the fact that it's a very unique way to tell socially provocative stories. And I think that's what I love about what Vishal has done, which is horror at its very best reflects back our deepest fears as a society. Fear is a very global feeling. It's global not just between the West and India or any region or country, but it's very global, as in that idea of being out of control or something you love is in threat, something that I can think speaks to all of us. And it's such a unique way to tell socially impactful stories
Hmm.
because it takes the stakes all the way up, right? I love movies or TV shows that have more local stakes or nuanced stakes or
Yes.
relationship, but horror, obviously, often the stakes are life and death. And I
Yeah.
think that that's something that makes it a very unique genre. It makes me something that loves it. And I think we've seen that the best horror goes completely global, right? I mean, how big of a franchise is Sinister, or how big of a
Hmm.
franchise we've seen from Korea, Train to Busan. I think that Chhorii can be that. I think it's on its way to being that.
Amazing.
But I really think Vishal deserves the credit because the exact thing I said that I love, which is horror as a lens to tell socially impactful stories
Which is what
because
he's
of
doing
the
through this.
depth,
But
that's what he's done.
how did you have the trust as well and faith in India, given the fact that, as Vishal just highlighted, that India has not had a very strong horror genre. He believes that so far we've done very mediocre work in horror. Was that something you were apprehensive about as well? And
I
have
mean,
you
I
seen
think
have you
that
seen
that was
have
the
you seen
case
some
in
of those
the
work? Have you
that was
seen
the
some of
case
those?
in the US for periods around
Okay.
horror. I think that everything really matters about the level of filmmaker and the care they put into something.
Hmm.
I had gotten to watch Lapachupi with Vikram when we had a screening, and he said, "I think you should watch this." And when I got to see it, and I think that was on a smaller budget potentially, I could see Vishal's talent. I could see how you cared about these characters.
Hmm.
I could see that he knew how to use dread as a way to set pace. I think a very key to horror movies that people get wrong is even if nothing's happening yet, the sense of dread that goes into setting up the first act is
Hmm.
actually what's priming you to maybe scream in the second or
Okay.
third act. And I thought he had that completely. So, as much as I hear your point and everyone's talked about how the genre maybe is on its way to being elevated and it hasn't always been, it's really about the filmmaker and storyteller.
Okay.
And Vishal
And
is
that's
someone who I
that's
think,
the trust you had in Vishal. All right, final question then,
yeah.
Vishal, to you. You're doing it, of course, with Chhorii 2. You've done it with Chhorii 1, and interestingly, you're doing it again with another film called Ma, where again you're working with Kajol, who again one would never imagine in such a genre. So are you making is it just a coincidence, or
No,
is it
no,
something that you all are consciously doing? And you are also consciously doing yourself as a filmmaker, which is great.
no, thankfully, that film actually dropped in my lap. It was a film that was already being developed at Devgan Films
Hmm.
with the man himself, Mr. Ajay Devgan.
Yeah.
So they were already working on the script for Kajol. So they